Hello and welcome to this demonstration of version 1 for SAFe. We're going to be going through the team section now and walking through how you can set up your individual stories and tasks and manage those tasks in your team rooms. And that'll be part of the two different menus that we're going to be covering in this section. So first we're going to go over Product Planner, and then we'll go over the team planning section next. So we've already worked at the portfolio level to break our strategy down, and we did that in Portfolio Planner. Once we broke that strategy down, we plan that work into one of our 2 program increments. And then the next thing is going to be breaking that work down. So at a team level, the 2 main planning areas that you can use are the product planner here, as well as the team menu. So what we're looking at now is a product planner backlog, and this is just showing us a prioritized list of all the work that we have in our backlog. This is a prioritized list, and it is filtered for the planning level that we have set up here on the upper left-hand side. So you can see right now we have set this at the program increment 1 level, and that's going to dictate all of the different items that we see here in the filtering that we're looking at. So we're only looking at the planning level work that's planned from PI 1 and all the way down. If I go up 1 level to the Agile release train level, that'll show me all of the work across the ART. So if I just change my planning level and go up 1 level to the call center, that will allow me to see all of the work across all the PIs. So when I apply that, we'll see the superset of all of the data, and I could keep going up in terms of that planning level. On the specific view here, I've configured this and using the customize, and I've configured it for my specific view of the fields that I want to see. Yours may look a little bit differently, but again, this is just a configuration that you can set. You can also set your various different views here. So if you want to just set a specific view filtered for your specific planning level, you can do that here as well. Adding a new record is available inline. You can also use the form, or I like to use the plus bar over here on the top left. So on the plus bar here, I can add any new assets. So a backlog item, a defect. I can also create templates for my backlog items, defects, and my portfolio items, so I can add them right in here very easily. Okay, so once you have all of your backlog items in here, we're going to align them to a specific epic or a feature. In this case, if I open up the details page for this, we can see all of the details as well as the portfolio item that it's assigned to. And this is showing me exactly which feature in this case we're aligned to. So that's the portfolio item field, and that's how we align this work to a specific feature. Okay, on this card, on the details page, we can also look at all of our conversations. This is a great way to communicate with your other team members. We'll say hello, and we'll go ahead and put a conversation out there for admin. If admin is out there, yeah, so there's the system admin, so we'll say hello to admin, and we'll share that. So these conversations are associated to this specific work item, in this case, a user story, and it shows us all the details on there. In addition to that, we can look at all the visualizations of all the pieces. So this is showing us all of the, in this case, the tests that we have, all of the individual tasks, and then the feature and how this story rolls all the way up to the epic. So this is one visualization that we can use on the story card to show us all the details for this specific backlog item. All right, so once we have our prioritized list, and we can again move these up or down if we want to, the next thing would be to add tasks or tests, and we're gonna go ahead and do that in the team planning section here. But I just wanted to show this because this is a really easy way for you to use the product planner to go in and manage that work. If you do have a lot of items to add, you can use the import. So the import allows you to download this advanced Excel template, and in that template, then you'll be able to put in your user stories. Here's an example of a user story that I can put in. So you just put in the asset type of story, and then all of the details for that story, and this will go ahead and upload that. If you want to use some basic HTML, you can use things like BRs for line breaks to separate the information in there, and use some basic tagging as well. So this is just an easy way for me to use this specific import, upload this specific template, and then that will allow me to add as many stories or epics or features or any other asset really that I want to using the import. Under Product Planner, this is also one place where we can go in and look at our issues that we have that are being tracked at this level. So again, if we had specific issues that are out there that are tracked, we can go in and see those specific issues as well here at this level. Finally, I'm going to drop down a level, and we're going to look at my objectives. So under the product planner, we looked at those objectives when we did our PI release planning. We can go into release 1 now, and we can see the specific objectives and how well we're going ahead and satisfying those objectives. So this tells us the goals that we have for each team, and then we can go in and we can summarize those and look at the details by planning level. So if we look at the details for a specific revenue goal, this is going to show us how well we're doing and exactly which projects and planning levels are satisfying that goal. So it helps us to understand and do a little objective or goal planning and see exactly where we are. We can also use this specific form to add the actual numbers in there once we get them from the business team. All right, so that's the product planner section where we can, again, add our backlog and manage that. The next section we're going to go to is the team planner. And this is where we're going to be able to do our sprint scheduling and our detailed planning on this specific menu here. So first thing we're going to do is our sprint scheduling. So we have our work here in our prioritized list. And the way the sprint scheduling works is there are two backlogs that we're showing here. So the top backlog is for the selected sprint, in this case, sprint number 2. And this bottom backlog is the work that's not planned into one of the sprints yet. So in order to plan this work, we can drag or drop it up here. We can also drag and drop it onto one of these sprints as well. So there's a couple of different ways we can go in and we can see the work that we want to see in there. So in this case, if I want to take enter RMA and plan it into sprint 2, I'll just drag it and drop it right up on there, and that'll add that to sprint 2. We can also add it into sprint 3 or 4. In addition to that, you can also directly add it to a team. So if you want to add this work right to our team, you can drop it right on the team, and that'll add it to the backlog for the core app team. It's another way to drag and drop the work over on that. When you click on one of these teams, it'll show you what's in the backlog for each of the teams. So you can use the team filter, or I can just click on it, and that's filtering the backlog for that specific team here. So this is the backlog for sprint 2 for the Bears. And that's what you need to do the planning section of that. The next thing we want to do is we want to add the tasks and tests onto this. So let's go back to our full backlog for sprint 2. If we want to add additional tasks or tests, let's go ahead and add one onto this enter RMA story. When I click here on plan backlog item, that allows me to add the tasks and tests. So I can do them individually here on this form, or if I want to, I can add them from a template. So by simply clicking on plan backlog item and then going under here, I can copy those tasks and tests, and I'm going to copy them to this template that we created. So there's a template out there already. These are some of the tasks that I've already set up, so we can just move a couple of these tasks onto that specific template, and I'll go ahead and save that, or copy them right to that backlog item. So now we have those 3 tasks right here on that backlog item. Now, if I wanted to, I could add tests in here as well. So if I want to add a new test, so we can just do test 1, and we'll do test 2. The enter key is going to be the save and new. And we'll just go ahead and save those. So we have our new stories and with our tasks and tests on there. Now it's ready for us to plan that work. And again, we've already moved it up into our sprint. So now we've got all of the detail work done. This essentially is going to be the sprint backlog. Now we have another view here that is detailed planning, and if we were doing capacity planning or we wanted to see other details for that, we can come to the detailed planning section here, and this allows us to very easily see all the tasks and tests we have across all the items. You can also move things up or down on there, so if I want to move a task or test into one of these, you can drag or drop it up into another story. So if you wanted to, that's one way to move the tasks around from story to story. Okay. Again, if we're doing capacity planning, this is where we could see some of those capacity hours and the details around that as well. So in here, we've looked at sprint scheduling in detailed planning. Once we have all that work done, the next thing we really want to do is do our detailed tracking. Now we do have the sprint tracking section here, but we don't need to use that because we can go all the way over to our team rooms and we can plan all of that work and see all the detail in our individual team rooms. So first thing we'll do is go into our call center team room, and that's going to show us a sprint view of that. So in this case, there's multiple views on this team room here. There's actually 4 views in here. So I've got storyboard, task board, test board, and list view. So right now we're on the list view, which shows us kind of a grid of that. When I go to my task board, this will show me the exact task board that we're working on. So in here, I've got all of my stories. I've got some key metrics across the top here, as well as my scorecard. If I want to go ahead and work on some of this, say my name is Chelsea, I'll just click on my ID here. That'll filter just for the items. You can see I'm filtering for Chelsea now. Now I can move my work over and complete that when I'm done with that specific work. So that's how I would manage the individual tasks. I'm filtering here by legend, so I'm filtering by type. So the different colors here represent the different types on this specific board. Once Chelsea's done giving her update, maybe she wants to actually put hours on that or burn down the to-do, she can go to track. And track will allow her to burn down the effort and the to-do hours as well. So that's how we can manage the details there. So on here, I can also add new tasks. So if I need to have a new task, I can go ahead and put a new one in there. I can also add new backlog items if I need to right here by clicking on Add New and updating the backlog items. I just click on the backlog tab to show me the backlog that we have. All right, so this is the task board and allows me to track and manage the different tasks that we have. If I want to look at it from a test perspective, there's also a test board. And that's the test board that we can use to see the individual tests that we have set up. Again, we can pass or fail these tests when we run them, and we can track the efficiency and the effectiveness of those tests as well. So if we want to track tests, we can do that here. We can also block work items at any time. So I've got blocked work items here where we can track and see why that's blocked, and we can try to address and attack that one as well. So the test board allows us to track the pass and fail of the test. The task board, again, is the tasks, and that's using 3 of the boards. So far, we've looked at list view, task board, and test board. Here, I've got my sprints set up so I can go to different sprints. If we want to see what's coming in sprint 3, we can look ahead and see, do we have any tasks yet out there? And I wouldn't expect to yet, but the team does that at the end of sprint 2. So we'll wait for the team to put their individual tasks in there, but that's another way to look forward in terms of the sprints that we have ahead of us. Another thing that we can do in here is we can use estimably to do some of the additional sizing. So if not all of our tasks are sized, we can go to our backlog, we can add conversation tab on here, and we can start a game that we call estimably. This will allow us to size the story. So if I take an individual story here, let's resize this hold order. When I begin a round of testing, that's going to allow me to see, again, this specific game ID. Any of your users can go into that game ID, and that'll allow them to see log in first, so you can use your handheld device or just your computer or any tablet you may have to put your details in there. And then your team members can go ahead and vote on what they think that specific story is. So as the person that's monitoring or tracking this is what you're going to see. So the facilitator will see the details here. So everyone's voted. We can see how many participants are there. And we can have a conversation about that and document that here. And then when I end the round, that'll show me what the consensus is. In this case, 3. So I can submit that work item, and that's going to put that 3 right over here on that work item as well. So that's just an easy way for you to use the estimably tab here to use the game of estimably to estimate your individual stories. You can also rerun or do another item if you want to go ahead and just move along if you want to change that. So just a simple way for your team to have some fun and put their details in here for tracking the work that they want to track. All right, so this is one version of the board. The other version of the board that you can use is a Kanban style board, but let me show you how I've set up this specific board first. So when I go to settings, on this specific board, this is set up to look at call center and then the releases underneath that. And then I've got the flow here as a sprint. So you can do a sprint flow or a Kanban flow. So sprint flow is going to use a specific sprint schedule as you set up that specific room. You can also add your members in here as well. So this is how you can add additional team members to that specific team room. Okay, so that's the sprint example and how we would set up a sprint board. If I was going to set up this similar kind of a team room for a Kanban team, we can go in and we can set that up for a Kanban board. So in this case, I've got a maintenance team here doing Kanban work. And on here, we're looking at a little bit of a different board. Instead of looking at it from a storyboard, from a task board perspective, we're on the storyboard, which is the 4th view that we can look at. So on here, each of our individual stories is a specific in a specific status, and you can add more statuses either at a team level or you can add it globally across all of the different teams. And this is just one example of how you can use a different view, a different flow. In this case, the storyboard, the Kanban view, to look at the cumulative flow instead of a burn down that you would typically see from a sprint team. Again, and instead of doing individual tasks, we can move these stories along and update the status as we move from flow to flow. On here, you can also go in and configure this board. So if I customize this board, we can set WIP limits as well. So in progress, we only want, say, 2 items in progress at any time. So we can set that. We can also group these. I like to group them, say, by priority or maybe by class of service. So we'll group by class of service, and I'll go ahead and save that. So now we have a WIP limit in here of 2. So if we put 3 things in this specific status, let me just add one more in here. This is UX2, number 3. Now we're violating that WIP rule. So you can see that we're shading, we're highlighting that. So we'll move that story out now so we're not violating that specific rule. So those are the two different boards that we can look at. That's a storyboard example, and that's a team room, and that's a Scrum example from a Kanban and a sprint example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my dashboard now, and then we're going to finish up by looking at our reviews and our retrospectives. So here I am back in my home. I'm looking at my specific dashboards, which has some specific 4UP panels that I care about for this specific level. When I go back to my team zone here, I can have two more areas that I can go to. First is close sprint. Close sprint will allow me to manage all of the work that I have and review all the items here and update the statuses as we need to. If I'm not done with one of these stories, then I can move it to the next sprint, say if I want to move it into sprint 3, or I can close or quick close this right over here. So when I close or quick close this item, that's going to then move it down into the closed area here after we review it. I can also update statuses and do other details right in here. So this is the first thing I need to do before I finish up my sprint planning, before my sprint review, is make sure that we go through. We can do it by team or we can do it for the entire sprint. Once we're done with our sprint review, that's when we're going to go in and do our retrospective, and we can track that retrospective in here as well. So if I want to add a new retrospective, I'll put the details in here. Typically, I'll just put sprint 1 retro, and we can put our agenda. We can decide which team this is for, who's the facilitator, and the summary. So the summary is where I like to put the detailed work after we discuss it. So here I have my retro. We have a conduct button in here, which will allow us to then actually manage and have the discussion. So typically, if we have an agenda, we'll go through that. Maybe that'll be on paper. We can transpose it into here. But one of the things I like to do is add new issues. So when I add a new issue in here, the type that I like to add is using the action item type here of retro action item. So this is where I like to track and manage my retrospective action items so that we can manage and we can track those further. And we'll look at those then in our issue list as retrospective action items. So that's just a great way to track each one of those and be able to manage when we're going to get it done, who's going to do it, and make sure that we don't drop any balls as we're going through the retrospective and making sure that we're managing all of the work there. Go ahead and leave that for now. So that's the end-to-end cycle. So we started here looking at the backlog. We did our backlog refinement. We did our sprint planning and our detailed planning by creating the sprint backlog. Then we did our daily stand-up in our team room or in our Kanban team if we're doing Kanban maintenance in there. And then we finished up with our review and our retrospective. So from a team perspective, those are all the ceremonies that we would normally use as we're going through this various different process. And there's a number of different reports that we can look at and we can use. One of them is here on the team room itself. So the team room has a specific has a specific scorecard. So this scorecard is filtered for our team, and we can use this to track how well each of our teams are doing. In this case, we've got a number of different views and reports, a burn down and a burn up report that we can look at if we want to see the different various aspects of our team and how we're building that based on the settings that we have for this specific team room. So that's one great way to go in and do that. If I go back to my work now, I can see just the work that I'm working on here on my home page. So this will show me all of my tasks and what I'm doing there, as well as all the different teams or Scrum sprints that I'm working on in here. But then also in the report section, there's a number of different team level reports. So you can go through and you can see the details. Again, we have our high level epic and release reports, but down here I have different sprint level reports that we can look at as well. So whether that be sprint dashboards for the individual teams or member dashboards to find out how much work you did or how much effort did we put in planning versus cycle time, other types of reporting we can look at. So an example of a sprint burn down, we can see how well we're burning down on this specific sprint. We can run that specific report and it'll show us the details for that. Again, we can walk through the details. Let me go up one level here and check that one out. So again, we can track where we are and how well we're tracking to all the work in that specific sprint and how well we're doing across that time zone. So again, just one view and one version of that we can go in and we can see and we can manage all of the reporting and the details that we have. That is the team level reports, and that really closes out the end-to-end view of what we can do from a team perspective. If you want to know more about some of the other sections, you can check out those recordings as well. Thanks and have a great day.